So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Thursday, October the 21st, 2021, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you in the queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Well, thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Once again, we're honored and delighted that you're here to engage in this conversation about this awesome understanding of physics and physiology and psychology and genetics that comes out of the first century Aramaic language. And of course, our focus is that of healing. And we need to distinguish healing from treatment. Treatment is something you do to something that doesn't exist. And it's kind of a difficult paradigm to get your head around. But you know, people talk about healing. Well, I need to heal my body. Well, my offering is you can't heal what isn't there. You can't heal a body because no such thing as a body exists. And people shake their heads. Oh, Michael, you just don't understand. It's like, are you sure it's me that doesn't understand? Let's listen to two of the greatest scientific minds that have ever existed on planet Earth. Let's listen to Albert Einstein. Albert is bringing forward an understanding that few in the so-called scientific worlds even still have a clue about. But here's what he says. On such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. If there is no matter, there is no body. If there is no body, obviously there's no diseased body. Bodies can't be healed because what doesn't exist can't be healed. Let's listen to Max Planck. This goes back over 100 years ago. Max is receiving the Nobel Prize in Physics. Actually, back a few years ago, we were invited to a conference by the National Institute of Science in Denmark. I actually got to sleep in the office with all of the possessions, the notebooks and such of Max Planck. And as he's receiving the Nobel Prize in Physics, here's what he says. And, you know, the ancient scriptures talk about there'll come a time when the whole world will be fooled. Oh, we've been so deeply fooled. But listen to Max. He says this. As a man who spent his entire life studying matter, I can tell you this much. There is no matter as such. Our entire world, he says, is made of succeedingly smaller patterns of vibratory fields nested one within another within another. Now, if you think bodies are real and bodies can be diseased, then you got to throw Einstein and Max Planck out. Go check out the work of the Max Planck Institute based in Max's thinking. You know, it doesn't get much better than that in the science realm. We hear a lot of science denial today. Why? Because people have been fooled. Let's use an analogy. Let's imagine we get someone who looks in a mirror, and we look at that face in the mirror, and we see a deep scar on that face. And somebody says, I'm going to go into that mirror and I'm going to fix that scar. Well, can you fix the scar in the mirror? Well, there's no scar. There's the appearance of a scar. You remember this man, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago said, don't judge by appearances. Don't get lost in appearances. The mirror is a reflection. You can't fix a reflection. You've got to go to the cause of the reflection. to even think that it could be healed is such foolishness that mind is obviously lost and will never find answers. If you've been fooled, your mind is so hopelessly lost, you will never find answers. You've got to get down to the truth. Now, the picture in the mirror, you could put a bandage over the scar. That's basically what medicine, what treatment does. Well, let's put a bandage on this. See, we covered up the scar. Now the scar is gone. No, the scar isn't gone. The scar's been hidden. But the scar remains right where it was. As long as we're dealing with reflections and not causes, we don't see results. And as long as our mind is working on trying to correct the reflection, looking and focusing on the part of the body that's broken, then we're working we're spending all of our resources in something that isn't even there, and it certainly is not correctly perceived. So if we look at, well, let's first go back. Let's go to the opening words in the book of John. If only this had been translated properly in English, there'd be such a resolution of problems that it wouldn't be funny. But we're told, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh, and they equate the Word with this man Yeshua. And it just is not justifiable from the Aramaic perspective. It's a foolish point. Because what it says there is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. In order for the reflection, the so-called body, or the image in the mirror, to heal, the cause, the place where the problem is, must be healed. Since the so-called body is a reflection of the mind, wounds held in the mind are reflected as anomalies in the so-called body. So bodies cannot be healed because bodies aren't diseased, because bodies don't exist. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing there, but there's an energy field that is that cause behind what we call the world of matter and the world of bodies. And that's the place where the primary energy is organized. Listen to that word, break that word down. Organized, turned into organic structure. And people are looking at the mirror, and they're chopping away at the mirror, and they're drugging the mirror, and they're herbing the mirror, and they're doing all sorts of things to the mirror. But they've lost contact with the cause that the mirror is a reflection of. So people work on symptoms in the body, and the symptoms are nothing more than a mirror image or a reflection of the mind that holds some sort of disintegrative energy that never belonged within this structure. So if your whole focus is on fixing that broken body part, your focus is on trying to fix the scar on the face in the mirror. Place where the work needs to be done is in this massive multi-generational database called the mind, reflected as the body. And when we start to own, and remember, we've got, relative to this integrated energy system called the body-mind unit, there are basically two qualities of energy. There's that which build the system up and that which tear the system down. They're integrative energies that bring it into deeper states of integration and what we would call health. And there's disintegrative, those things which would take us out of the integrated state. In Aramaic, the word that was used to describe energetic patterns that would take us out of the integrated state or create what we call diseases, create the reflection of a broken body part, the word to describe that was the word sin. Now, when you realize the true nature of the word sin, it's got nothing to do with the Greek idea of you're a guilty person, you should have, you didn't. The word sin is an archery term. When you fired at the target on the shooting range and you missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper yelled sin. That's all it means. It's an energy that's off the mark. And you remember they told us the wages of sin is death. The result is the reflection called a body, when it can no longer sustain life because it is so full of energies that are off the mark, the energy system that sustains or becomes organized as a body dissipates, disappears, falls apart. And so the so-called body, the reflection in the mirror, disappears. And we call that death. So the wages of sin is death. So the pursuit is not the pursuit of fixing or healing a body, but looking at where the mind is engaging in mind energy that is out of harmony with love. And if it's out of harmony with love, wherever it is in your tissue structure is set to feed you back information. And when you look at it, or at least you think you're looking at it, you look at an anomaly in it, you say, oh, there's a diseased part there. No, the energy that stands back of and behind, the energy that is superior to the appearance, is in a disintegrative state. So the appearance it reflects disintegration. But the reflection isn't where the disintegration is. And so we must come back to cause. The mind must be healed. What are the wounds held in the mind? Oh, when I was 3 years old, I was dissed by my older brother. Oh, when I was in the birth process, my mother decided she didn't want to have a baby, rejected me. Oh, when. And all of these energetic patterns that are not based in love and that are cumulative generation to generation to generation to generation reflect as energetic patterns held within one's energy field. Most people, the most tragic thing they could think of doing is having to face that horrific, painful experience that happened to them at some time in their lives, to really come full-blown face-to-face and experience the energy as it is. But that's the only way healing ever occurs, is when we can bring forward that original disorganized state of energy and bring it forward in the presence of love, where a transmutation occurs and the broken part changed. It's gone. It's restructured in an instant. So the tool that's so important, the tool that's missing from the world, and yet it's the tool that most people don't want to really, truly touch, because it means you have to look at that. You have to deal with that. No, I just want a pill. No, I just want a surgeon to fix it. No, I just. Don't make me look there. Don't make me feel. I just want another shot of scotch. And life, opportunities for us to learn forgiveness marches on, bringing us to experience after experience after experience after experience of why is this happening to me again? And we try to fix the outer expression, the image in the mirror, and not feel and not deal with the original energy that's still being carried around in the field. That is the disorganized state of mind energy that reflects as a disorganized state of quote unquote body or mind or emotion. Can we embrace those energetic patterns and hold to the presence of active love? If we can't, then this man Yeshua 2,000 years ago delivered a tool. The tool was called forgiveness. And forgiveness has nothing to do with me letting you off the hook for the disorganized state of energy that's going on in me and is at the root of and is the cause of my pain. Now, you may be the one who came along, resonated it into activity for me. I had it neatly packed away and hidden. And here I am, the 87th different time, and you're the 42nd person that's brought it up for me, and the world will counsel me to let you off the hook because you brought that up for me, and I've missed another opportunity to embrace the original energy of offense, disintegration, that is held somewhere in my tissue structure that I say is where my pain is. And when I hold my breath, that's the place where I have the opportunity to embrace that energy in the presence of active love and remove it. That's what the forgiveness tool is designed for. But it means you have to look, you have to feel, you have to deal with what's in there. And the last thing that most people want to do is to look, feel, or deal with what's inside of themselves. And we're here to support you having the courage and the tools so that it's not just getting lost in a traumatic energy that you've dissociated from, but it is finding that traumatic energy at its very root, being in the practice of having love conscious and active. And if I can't do it for myself, then I have someone who's there to support me who can, and stepping into process. And again, in this work, we define processing as the ability to hold love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes up. So if I have any form of physical, mental, emotional disease, there's an energy in me that I need to allow to come forward to full awareness in the presence of active love, mine or someone who can hold that space for me. And when that love is present, there is a dissolution of sin. There's the resolution of the disintegrative energy. And in the instant where that happens, the appearance of disease is gone. Now let's take an extreme example. There's one recorded event where in Lourdes in France, where these miracle waters and people hold this belief that by visiting Lourdes they'll be healed. And in one case, there's a medically documented case of a man who his hip is literally eaten away with cancer. It's virtually gone. He doesn't have a hip. But he knows if he can enter those healing waters, he will be restored. Now, they've got x-rays of there's no hip there. He goes into the waters. He comes back out and he walks away. And they have x-rays of a fully, perfectly formed hip. How can that be? If you understand how energy systems work, how energy fields work, how so-called matter is a reflection, then it's pretty simple. Makes perfect sense. I don't know, for that man, what he had to process. I don't know, if you talked to him, if he knew what he needed to process. Cognitive awareness is not necessary, although it is often a part of the process. But one must process whatever the root energy is. And, in a case like that, it might have been something 20 generations old. And he may have no cognitive awareness whatsoever what he processed when he went in there. Whatever it is that's going on in your body, stop trying to fix your body and fix your mind. You can spend all the money and time and energy and professionals and healers and in the world. But if you don't deal with the mind energy behind it, healing is never going to be reflected in the mirror. So in essence, that's the bottom line of what we're here to understand and what we're here to bring into full expression. And I'm going to go to page 133 in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We have missed you guys for a couple of days. I assume Jeannie, I didn't listen to the first minute or two of the show, but I assume Jeannie told you that we are having a grandparents' vacation with our granddaughter, who's been circling there for 3 years. And we have the other set of grandparents with us that are up in the Shenandoah Valley. And we have these beautiful, 70-degree sunny days. It's just been wonderful to be out and playing tubing, and it's just all kinds of fun stuff. And so we took a couple of days to be focused with these other grandparents, and then set the time aside today so that we could do the show and touch in with everyone. And the paragraph in the book, we're talking to Richard about this idea of conscious, active, present love. And Richard is wondering, is it possible for these family disease patterns to be changed? And my answer to him is absolutely. My experience is that holding the space of conscious, active, present love, and I use that term. That's a term that's been with me for decades. And I use that conscious, active, present love to reflect that we're not talking about the world's idea of, oh, I love you, sappy, syrupy, sweetly, we're not talking about that. That's not love. That's got nothing to do with love. That's a false concept. Talking about tapping the being, the created essence that is love in you, like the fact of your being is the active presence of love. We're talking about tapping that on the shoulder and awakening it from the sleep of a world of hostility or fear so that it becomes fully conscious, fully present, and fully active in the space. It is the activity of that present love that creates the healing process. And for most people, it's going to take some practice. Literally cultivating your relationship with yourself as active, present love. And then being willing to be freed of the self that you thought you were, that's based in hostility or fear, so that the true being that you are can replace that false image in your mind. That's all a part of the healing process. So we're talking about conscious, active, present love is the actual presence, awake and aware of a being, not some kind of syrupy, soupy, I love you state. And if you haven't practiced that, there's some serious work to be done to disidentify with the hostility, the fear, the pains, the diseases, and the suffering of the world. And if that's what you're identified with, by being identified with it, that's what you empower. And if that's what you've empowered, then that's what reflects in your process, in your life, in your form, your expression. So we're inviting people to learn to withdraw, and it's forgiveness that allows the withdrawal. It's forgiveness that collapses the false states of mind that are fake. I love you. It's getting rid of that fake stuff and actually being the presence of love. So I'm offering to Richard that yes, that's exactly what it takes to resolve everything that surfaces within us. Richard was reaching new levels of clarity and enthusiasm in his process. Anyone who's done this work knows that the event that follows a new level of empowerment is often a healing crisis. It is at this point in the process that many people become just absolutely filled with self-doubt about their ability to truly heal their pain. For some, the process seems too hard. For some, too complicated. For others, too simple. And for still others, the pain seems too deep. He looked forlorn as old feelings of hopelessness surfaced for healing. This sounds so hopeless, Michael. If all of my pain is inside of me, how can I ever get away from it? Why are we not all taught this as children? That we create our own reality. How will I ever work through this? How will I ever work this out in my relationship? How can I slow down, Richard? Remember, hold on. These feelings will pass. The surfacing of hopelessness is an opportunity to deal with that reality that's resident in your mind. And, hopelessness, the mind functions through every cell in the body. So that hopelessness, that energy of hopelessness that Richard's now touching into, and it's one that most everybody holds, could be stored anywhere within the structure or be reflecting anywhere within the structure. If it's in the knees, it's going to reflect as knee pain. If it's in the head, it's going to reflect as a headache. If it's in the shoulder, it's going to feel like shoulder pain. And people, I need to heal my knee pain. I need to heal my headache. I need to heal my shoulder pain. No, you don't. You need to deal with what your mind is doing that reflects as those different qualities of dis-ease. The surfacing of hopelessness is an opportunity to deal with that reality in your mind. You're at least learning these things now. Most people go through their entire lives without ever discovering what's going on, without ever having tools. And the key thought at this point in the conversation with Richard is upset is an opportunity to learn forgiveness and let go of blame. And so I'm going to complete the reading at that point. And Miss Jeannie, let's open the phone lines and see if there's anybody out there with a thought for us. Any questions from the last 2 days' shows? And basically, that's the workshop, Getting the Stress You Need, that Jeannie had set up to play. And, I mean, you can travel the globe and you can talk to all the experts on stress, and they're going to tell you, but different ways, different things. They say, well, just breathe and do this or do that or do that. But in the last 2 days, you've heard exactly how stress is created and exactly how stress is resolved. Now, I can understand if people are unwilling to remove that which is the driver for their stress, that the stress doesn't go away, and they go, well, this doesn't work. But if you take the tool of forgiveness, and if you're not using it at this point, I support you. And it is the deepest resistance in this work is to doing forgiveness, to engaging in forgiveness. Because you gotta look at yourself bare, square up, straight in the face. If you're not using the forgiveness tool at this point, I invite you to go to our website, whyagain.org. In the upper left-hand corner, the first 2 words of the page say Start Here. Click that link, and it will walk you through everything you need to know about forgiveness. And I mean everything. I mean 40 years of work. It's there. It's free. Go take it, use it, put it to work. And/or you can download the worksheet from the website. I mean, you can actually do the step-by-step forgiveness process on the website. There's lots of guidance there for it. You can download the worksheets, print them on your own printer, and have them there to fill out. And/or you can go to your app store on your phone and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, as one word, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. When you type that into your app store, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. Thank you to Miss Jeannie for, I don't even know how many hundreds, perhaps thousands of hours. Well, in total, behind that app, you're walking over to me to say, Michael, what about? So this is the time for your what about question. If you're in that audience and you had the opportunity to walk over to me, what would you be saying to Michael Ryce? And push 1 and say it. We're here for that interaction. We're here to create that support. And if you feel like your voice might be a little shaky, gee, I'm going to be on the radio. I don't know if can you make it okay for your voice to be shaky? It's like, so what? Who cares? Nobody cares about that. Well, I don't want people to know who I am. Well, give us a fake name. I don't care. That's up to you. Well, my questions aren't that important. Well, oftentimes it's the beginners that ask a question that take me and take others back to the core principles and allow a more complete understanding of the process. So please ask your question if you've got one, or put in your request for support. If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show live on your phone. And if you push 1, we'll be having a conversation. So if you're out there in this one, push 1, let's have a conversation. Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody on the phone with a hand up? Great.
No, we do not have anybody with a hand up, but I had something I'm not sure if you were referring to a different time when you said we stayed at a place where Max Planck stuff was, but if you're talking about when we were in Denmark, that was actually Niels Bohr.
Oh, you're right. Niels, oh my goodness, I get them mixed up. You're right. It was Niels Bohr's office that I get.
He's the one that did the Manhattan Project and all that.
Right.
It was
another time. You're right.
Yeah, it was a
Thank
2013 conference on the creativity and science in society.
And it was his 100th birthday celebration by the Nobel Prize awarding group there. That we were invited to their conference. It was pretty cool. It was pretty amazing. Sitting around in a room with all these Nobel Prize winners and Nobel laureates and having conversations. Jeannie was sitting with the head of the group, and she decided she needed to defer to me at one point. No, you need to ask Michael those questions. Share that story with us, sweetie, if you would.
Well, it's just that everybody there was some top physicist or researcher or scientist or whatever. They're all this intellectual, and it was like I would be telling him about the work, and then he would flip over into, it was almost like they would almost get it, and then they'd flip back over into the intellectual stuff. And then he'd start asking questions, that was like way over my head as far as, scientific or physics or whatever. And Michael was about 3 people down the table, and I'm like, you really need to talk to him. They were brilliant minds there. It was amazing. But they would it would almost be like, they were listening, and he'd almost get what I was saying, and then it was like a deflection. Instead of just absorbing what I was saying, he had to go into the intellectual part of it and the explanation of it instead of just accepting.
Well, and my take would be that he was talking to you as a human being and listening to and hearing you and getting into the process work that you were offering him. And then his head kicked in and said, wait a minute, I don't do this sort of thing. I have to figure it out. And, of course, that's the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind, figuring it out, and that's what keeps us out of the real process work that's necessary to do.
Exactly.
Anyway, we've definitely gotten to play with some pretty interesting folks around the country and around the world in this work and this process. And so, if you're out there in listener land, we're here to answer your questions. What can we do to support you? How can we assist you in your search for healing your mind? Or perhaps your search is...
If you're new...
Go ahead, sweetie.
I was just going to say, if you were new to this work, press 1. Oh, we had a hand just go up. So let's introduce our caller, 636. You're on the air. Who do we have?
Hi, this is Shirley. I'm kind of new to this process. So I was listening last night, and yesterday, and I was super thankful that you kind of went through how to go about doing it a little bit more structured, which I appreciated that. And then, so I was listening during my lunch hour. I had talked to Jeannie before. And then you started in with going back to, like, when you're a child and with your mother. And, of course, I, totally forgot. I don't even know. I don't know anything about that relationship, really. She died when I was in my 40s, but I tried to not, I don't know, I don't think I had expectations of her. But as a mom myself, I know I had expectations of myself. And of course, what happens, I was raised by, my mom, but 4 older sisters. And so when you're doing this, and I'm kind of excited, it's like, oh, finally I can maybe do something I'm thinking. One of my sisters calls and interrupts. So I need to go back and listen to the whole radio show again. But has that ever happened where it takes a lot of work to think about the past, about a relationship like that?
It definitely requires us to do something much different than our culture has taught us to do. Our culture has taught us to skim across the surface and don't look within. And, we're out there searching in the stars and, flying to the moon. And most people haven't even looked inside their own hearts and dealt with and processed the depths of emotional trauma, family trauma, cultural trauma, global trauma that is moving in them, and they live to try to keep separated from it. And you take a look at all, if somebody isn't using, let's say, for instance, let's take an example of alcohol to anesthetize trauma, they would never take the second drink of alcohol. Kind of like, it's pretty dramatic when people say, well, I've never smoked before. Oh, and teenagers, here, why don't you try one? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And the body gave a pretty clear signal, this is not appropriate. But because at the same time as that toxic energy is taken in, that nicotine creates such an anesthetic effect that the person who's coughing and sputtering, half to death, goes, oh, I'm not feeling pain right now. My pain is gone. This is good. And they'll work their way through until their body stops the rejection process and lets them do it. It's the same with alcohol. And I've seen that it's not as dramatic with alcohol as with, say, for instance, smoking, the body's rejection of it. But I worked with a woman back probably 30 plus years ago who, basically her husband was a businessman, and she was a housewife and took care of the kids, and every night he'd come home late for dinner. They were millionaire types and compulsive workaholic, compulsive alcoholic, although she proclaimed we were not alcoholics. But every night when he'd get home, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, they'd have 3 or 4 drinks before dinner and a bottle of wine with dinner and 3 or 4 drinks after dinner, go to bed, slosh. But they weren't alcoholics. This is something that went on for years until she became involved in this work. And then when she started doing this work, she realized that she was using alcohol as a medication to anesthetize herself, and so she stopped using alcohol for a period of about 5 years. And in a session, 5 or so years later, she shared with me that she'd been at a party, hadn't touched alcohol in years, and somebody offered her a drink of hard liquor, and she's like, yeah, I'll have a drink. And what she said was that she just took a sip of that, whatever it was, I don't know, vodka or whiskey, whatever. She said, I just took a sip of it, and it felt like razor blades in my kidneys. Now, most people don't feel the razor blades in their kidneys. I mean, that's a part of the body, that and the liver. I mean, they're totally trashed after a number of years of using alcohol. And people call it fun to drink. But it's not fun. It's, I get a few minutes without pain. And that's translated into, this is good, until we get rid of the pain. And then you wouldn't think about your second drink, because the first one would be, if you experience the trauma it's causing the body, you never touch the stuff again. And so to be willing to start to face what's in there and to make that journey within, to climb down inside yourself, if you come from a cultural history that's outer focused, accomplishment, family, which is wonderful, all of those things, but never spending time going within and dealing with the inner space. And that's what we're inviting people to do. And, as you talk about it, it sounds like you're the early adopter in your family. You're the first one, who's said, I'm going to start to go in and look at these things within me. And that means that you have to do the heavy lifting and start to work through some of those things and open a different possibility within your family system by doing so within yourself. And it sounds like, if you have no recall, were you in your mom's life up until that age when you were 40 and she passed?
Well, yeah. So as a child, she was hospitalized often till the time I went to kindergarten. And I was born very late in their life. My mom was like 39. I mean, back then, years ago, she was 39 and my dad was 42. And, she announced that she was pregnant with me at my oldest sister's high school graduation. So feeling that it wasn't an excited happiness kind of thing, it was more like, you've got to be kidding kind of thing. And
right.
I know she went in and she had to have a gallbladder removed, and she had to have a hysterectomy, and then, I don't know, they used to pull teeth a lot instead of repairing them for some odd reason, so she had to have that done. So she was gone a lot from me, both mentally and physically. And my sisters, were held to take care of normal things, like she needs to eat, like I need to eat, or whatever. But my dad, he was laid off a lot. He was a tool and die maker, and the trade kind of, got kind of shaky from the 60s through the 70s. And so as a young child, he tried to take over and do the nurturing. So my relationship was strong with him, which caused more problems between my mom and my dad. So I don't see her as a nurturer, but that's about all, and I've tried to, I don't want to judge her, I'm sure she probably did her best, but I guess those shoulds are what I need to start peeling away.
That would probably be useful. There's where you would take the worksheet process and start to process through those dynamics within yourself, because the mind never forgets anything. Every experience we've gone through, we may have no recall of it, but the mind hasn't forgotten it. It's there.
Okay.
The energetic pattern of it is there, having its influence. And so the idea here is to uncover, with the forgiveness process, you uncover those energetic patterns, and you enter into the practice of continuing to breathe when those things move instead of holding the breath, and being able to really look them right square in the face. And rather than losing yourself in identification with those painful moments in your life or that painful self, you really are identifying and recognizing and experiencing from a space of your created essence, love, your being, those experiences. And when you do, what happens is the pained, traumatic events and energetic experiences that are woven into our perception so transparently that we don't even know what it is that we're looking at start to unravel. And when they unravel, you get to confront some of those really deeply painful moments. But when you keep your breath moving and your tissue structure open and softened, and again, simply breathe through those experiences and hold to present love, then those energetic patterns become unraveled and no longer are at the root of the constructs of your mind that guide your behavior. Your true being ends up becoming the root of those experiences, and it just changes everything. It just changes everything.
Okay. So, since I have just started at the beginning, I do work usually during the day, full time.
Right.
If people, because I can't spend every day in, day out, sunrise to sunset working on this, what does that time look like that would be reasonable and yet consistent? You recommend, every day for like an hour or 3 times a week? What do you think?
Well, if you go back into the ancient teachings, one of the things they suggested that people do is they tithe. And, the churches have made that all about money because their thing is about money so often. But tithing, I think the more important aspect of tithing is giving of your time to your own spiritual process. And if tithing is 10%, that would mean that you would work toward, and it's something that's going to take time. When I first started doing this work, I was in the business world. I had 3 businesses. I had 60 employees. I ran 18 hours a day, 9 days a week. I didn't have time to do any of this. And there came a point after about 6 years of doing this work part-time that I literally woke up one morning and walked away from this business world, went back to school, went into teaching this full-time. So now I spend all of my time focused in this process. So, but a happy medium is to work toward the point where you put 2.4 hours of your day, I use the acronym time, intelligence, money, and energy, that you put 10% of that toward your spiritual process and work. That doesn't mean tomorrow you have to spend 2.4 hours on it, but to just, over time, over a period of time, reorganize your life so that what's important to you, you spend time paying attention to and doing. Now, the world will keep you running in other directions and busy. I mean, busyness is the number one drug of the world. Jeannie and I did a workshop up in a super high security prison in Ionia, Michigan back a few years ago. Oh, wow. And this was a prison where everybody in the prison was a minimum of 25 years, and many of them were lifers. Wow. And we did a couple of weeks of workshops, and then one of our teachers up there started to work with the group, went in and did a support group. And the course, the ultimate course that we developed for the prisons is called Laws of Living. We have a version of that we teach in the in the secular world as well, but we designed Laws of Living for the prison, and they were going to, the teacher up there in Ionia was going to do the Laws of Living course within the prison. And the tradition with Laws of Living has always been that the prisoner who's engaged, it's oftentimes, in some programs we've done, it's actually the judge sentences them to Laws of Living, and they have to pay for it. Well, these guys are 25 years to life. They're not going to pay for a course. So what we did is so that and the purpose of that was so they were invested in it. They had something on the table. And so what we did is we set it up so that the requirement was, in the 8 weeks that preceded the course, they had to do 5 worksheets a day, the forgiveness worksheet process. They'd do 5 of those a day, every day, until the course began. And came time for the course to actually begin, every person who had signed up for the course and wanted to do it had the same excuse for the fact that they couldn't turn in 5 worksheets a day. Now, these are guys who are locked up in their cells 23 out of 24 hours per day. If they maybe work in the commissary for a couple hours or in the laundry or something, they might get a couple more hours out of their cells. But 23 out of 24 hours. Guess what every man's reason was for the fact that he couldn't turn in 5 worksheets a day? It was that they were too busy. Oh. They're locked in jail cells for 23 out of 24 hours, but they were too busy. Every one of them. That's what they said. They were too busy to do it. And that is like one of the number one drugs of the culture. So I don't say to somebody, well, tomorrow you should start doing 2.4 hours a day, but start to organize your life and recognize the direction you want your life to go, and then invest in moving your life in that direction till you get to the point where you've reorganized your life in a way that you put 2.4 hours a day into your spiritual work, into this work. And over the period of a lifetime, you will achieve the goal of being redeemed from the family patterns, from the cultural patterns, from the pain, the trauma, the insanity of your culture. And I'm talking about your own individual family culture. We've all got our own insane family cultures, and the general culture, that you'll bring a shift and a change to that whole thing. And it's a monumental gift to give to your bloodline. I love what Jonas Salk, the inventor of the Salk vaccine, says. I think this was far more important than his invention of the Salk vaccine, but he said the most important thing to be is a good ancestor. And so you step in and you do your work, and you open a different energetic dynamic for the whole family system. So that's what I'd suggest you work for, is take the tools, start using them, and work toward the point where you can spend 2.4 hours a day doing your work.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Awesome. And, if you're working you're working during showtime, once the show is over, you can download the shows day by day and continue to listen. And we've actually got about 10 years in the archives, so there are 3,000 or 4,000 shows in our archives that you can go back and download. And the best app to see them in it that I found. Most apps where you do podcasts limit you to 300 shows, and the iHeartRadio app gives you access to all of our programs right back to day one over 10 years ago. You can download them free.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
And we're here to answer every question you can possibly come up with. If you are on the phone with us every day, that would be awesome. Asking questions, refining, asking. That's what we're here for.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Cool.
I do appreciate it.
All right. Delight to meet you.
Same here.
All right,
Take
blessings.
care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And we're down to the last minute or two, so everybody, thank you for participation and being with us, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. And blessings. Bye-bye.